بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
الحمد لله رب العالمين. Salatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, and welcome to Islamic Oasis Live. Dear brothers and sisters, first of all, Jazakumullahu khairan for attending the conferences that we've done. I mean, this is just to kind of, yesterday we did a conference. We had many people on, and many people they were part of the conference. They were asking questions. You can see that the Ummah is not only wanting change, but wants to be part of people who are wanting to change things. We are looking, we're not just asking where is Salah ad-Din now, but we are now asking what do we need to do to make sure that that we develop and bring men that will bring the change in this ummah. So Jazakumullahu khairan for that response. That tells us that alhamdulillah, this ummah is well and alive, and it is not going anywhere. Rather, it is pushing the front lines to a point that it will bring the change that it needs. And that is the discussion today. Subhanallah. So we brought Sheikh Mehmet Usta. Let me give you an introduction of who the Sheikh is. Allahumma barik. We have Sheikh Mehmet Usta, who's the founder of I3 Institute. I think many people in Canada are much more aware of this than now, also probably United States, and Toledo Foundation, and has been teaching Islamic knowledge for over 2 decades. Sheikh Usta has studied under 11 prominent scholars and holds a bachelor's in computer science, Arabic, and Islamic studies. He also holds a master's in business administration and is completing his second master's in Islamic studies. So Sheikh Usta, welcome to Islamic Oasis Live.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah barakatuh. May bless inshallah. Hayak Allah.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi. Hayak Allah akhi. Sheikh, let's begin this discussion here. Obviously, I'm sure you have your eye on the Muslim world and seeing the things that you are seeing. The name of today's discussion is Change Must Come Now. When we think of change, Sheikh, what should we be thinking of change? What is change?
Wallahi ya akhi, change, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, change is really getting this ummah into a better situation. Like, people seek change for one reason, right? To get your situation better. A person who's, let's say, struggling, not finding a job, he wants change to get a better career and have a stable job, have a stable income. So change, just in terms of the definition from a professional perspective, really is getting the situation to a better state. Now the ummah right now is divided. The ummah is in humiliation. The ummah is weak. We're seeing our situation right now in Gaza. Gaza is, you can say, this the current calamity. Lots of calamities, unfortunately, right? Like Gaza is right now with the rate of civilians killed per day for the last 50 days has been horrific. Has been like a massacre at a large scale, basically, with the world viewing it live on TV. But before that, there's East Turkestan. Before that, there's Libya. Before that, there's Yemen. Before that, there's many other calamities befalling the Ummah. Every year or two, we have a huge calamity. So change is being able to basically get this Ummah where its honor and dignity are protected, and that people basically feel the security and justice that Islam basically orders them to basically have. It's an order to have. If people don't want it, Islam, it's a wajib to have these things. So that's the change that the Ummah needs to basically realize, being able to be a dignified Ummah that fulfills the objective of the Risala, of the Da'wah of Islam, and to have Islam being the deen that manages the affairs of humanity.
So what
In short,
what is the Risala, Sheikh? I know this is I'm putting you I mean, obviously, but look, so now there are a lot of people out there. I mean, there are talking about this type of change, and they're saying, okay, yeah, we want the Quran and the Sunnah. But Sheikh, I guess, for instance, we in the last decade, let's say, we saw different movements come in power and then be removed from power. They were calling for Quran and Sunnah, but for some reason, Quran and that's why I guess I'm asking you to be a little bit more detailed here. When what is this? Is it the hudud we are asking for? What are we asking for, Sheikh? When we say Islam, we want Islam.
when we say the Risala of Islam, the message of Islam is one. No two Muslims today in the world should differ on what is the Risala of Islam. The Risala of Islam is for humanity to live under the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all of the human beings within that shade of Islam, Muslim and non-Muslims alike, men and women, the rich and the poor, the Arabs, the blacks, the Hispanic, the whites, everybody, the Asians, all people of different ethnicities, languages, cultures, background, religious background, live under justice. Human beings are a social creature. So that means basically we need to live together, right? Living together necessitates a rule. What is the rule of the game? How are we going to live together without fighting, without people basically unjustly taking people's property or taking people's rights away, right? Which is basically the norm. The norm is basically, since the beginning of recorded history, you have empires. You have, whether it's the Macedonians, the Greeks, the Persians, the Babylonians, the Romans, yeah, all the Chinese, all different civilizations. The number one feature that really equates all of them is that those who have power subdue everybody else, right? It's the law and the order set by the powerful few and subjugating the majority, right? In addition to basically colonialism and expansion that basically also subjugate people of other colors, backgrounds, religious backgrounds. What we as Muslims basically promote and what the Islamic message promotes is a universal justice system that all human beings can live under with justice. You see what I'm saying? What is the Risala of Islam? The Risala of Islam, I'm going to say one more time, is that is this universal justice system that human beings can live under, so everybody can feel that they're treated with respect and dignity, and there's fairness and justice. So that's what it is. This is the message of Islam. Now, what is Tawheed? Tawheed is basically saying that we as the human beings, for us to be equal, to be honest, basically Islam has the first message of equality. Islam has the first message of equality, way before liberalism, way before the European Renaissance. What is the message of equality that we promote as Muslims? Is that all human beings, the powerful, the rich, the weak and the poor, the blacks and the whites, the north and the south, all types of people basically have no say in setting the law, in setting the rules of the game. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of the human being, is the one who has the supreme right of setting the laws for everybody. Men and women, rich and poor, white and black, north and south. Doesn't matter what human being are you. You basically are all equal in front of the one law that gets set by a third party, which is all-knowing, all-powerful, and that's the creator of the universe. This is the Risala of Islam.
let's go a bit more deeper into Sheikh. You know, there's a lot of discussion now that Gaza might actually become the graveyard of American empire. You know, we had the idea that Afghanistan was the graveyard of empires, and then now Gaza, meaning that everything that the West ever stood for, comes to liberalism or human rights, international law, or at least some type of global structure. There is something there is some type of rule of law. All of that has been seen destroyed completely in the last maybe 6, 7, 8 weeks.
Yes.
Now the Muslims are, even those who call themselves secular, let's say, those who are calling themselves wanting to be like the West and all of this, and even with all of that, they were called human animals. That in every possible way you will be considered, no matter which way you try to be like us, you can't be like us. You will always be the so-called global South, and you will be human animals. So now,
definitely.
Connect that to me. I mean, connect that.
Definitely.
If you can.
I would say, definitely, 100%. This is the most important point about what happened in the last 48 days. The last 48 days, the most important thing about it, which is going to be historic, is that today all of humanity, not just the Muslims, but definitely, most importantly, basically the Muslims, 2 billion Muslims today. But I'm saying not only the 2 billion Muslims, the 8 billion human beings saw the hypocrisy of the Western proposal for their universal human formula, right? International law, the United Nations, the International Criminal Court, all these organizations, what the West stood for, which they always used to basically preach on TV, and definitely we've heard it loud and clear during Ukraine. Does not apply to Palestinians, does not apply to Muslims, does not apply to people of darker skin, does not apply to the global South, as you called it. Today, definitely, basically, what happened is the Western world got exposed, and the Western ideals got exposed, that it is not a system for everybody. There's no fairness, there's no equality, there's no freedom, there's no sanctity for life, there's no human rights, there's nothing. There is nothing except basically for a selected few. And this is alhamdulillah, we've seen basically videos of lots of people from all over the world, Westerners and Easterners, basically seeing the resilience of the Palestinians and the resilience of that human being, these civilians that basically got hit so hard. It is unimaginable in terms of the amount of pain that they went through, but they were still steady. They were still saying thanks God for whatever happened. They were okay with all the calamities. They could not break the spirit of a Muslim person, and this basically captured their hearts and the minds of everybody. We've always heard basically that the world right now is all about the battle of the hearts and minds, and I think today, as you basically have said, the Western world, especially the United States and what it stands for, of all its liberties and rights and freedoms and so forth, fell through the cracks and fell through the drain, really, in front of everybody's eyes. Definitely, it took lots of lives. It took around 60,000 Palestinians, basically, between injured, people under the rubble, and people who were, documented to have been killed, for humanity to witness these flimsy claims, these hypocritical claims about a universal law. The only universal law that really will give equality for every human being, irrespective of their ethnicity, background, religious background, beliefs, is Islam.
Sheikh, how important is ideological change?
Well, that's what it is. Like, ideological change is basically the change of the paradigm of how human beings sees the world. How do we live together as human beings? Do we always need?
But is it about living together, or is it about See,
It is about
yeah,
living together. It is about the humans living together. There's 8 billion people, right? We're supposed to be living as one family, right? Because we're all the children of one pair of human beings, Adam and Eve. The question is how. So Islam came to say, look, la ikraha fi din. There's no compulsion in religion, meaning people, in terms of religion, meaning faith and spiritual activities, they have the right to choose whatever they want. There's no compulsion, right? But what creates justice? Because when human beings need to live together, there has to be a formula of what is the rule of the game. Let's say basically I need to buy a laptop from you. What is the rules of the game? Should I go and steal a laptop, or should I basically force my price on you, or should you force your price on me, or should it basically be the market? What is the formula? So every human being has their own different perspective, right? Definitely every culture, maybe certain few individuals might agree on something, but not all of humanity. What Islam says is that we need to let go of our presupposed notions of what rules, what are the rules of the game that we presuppose, and just say, look, nobody has the right to set the rules of the game. All human beings basically should follow the one set of rules of games that God, the Supreme, God the All-Knowing, God the All-Wise, sets for everybody. So this way, the blacks and the Hispanics and the Arabs and the Asians and the whites and everybody becomes equal in front of the law. One set of laws for everybody that are that are perfectly true, because it's coming from the All-Knowing, coming from the perfect being. So this type of ideological proposal is the da'wah of Islam. There's no other da'wah in Islam except that us as humanity, we could live together in justice and peace and happiness within one code of law that nobody forces upon nobody else. Like the North doesn't have to shove their values down our throats, the South, and the South doesn't have to basically shove their values down the throat of the North. Let's just all basically agree to just submit to the system that God has sent us and live ever happily on earth. This is the Islamic proposal. We are the only ones that basically call for liberty, meaning we are the ones who basically call for liberation of the human being from the slavery to other men, to other human beings, yeah, and for equality, meaning nobody has a say. We're all equal on equal footing, having zero say and accepting the law of God to be the one that sets the law of the rules of the game and the law for humanity. So ideological change is focusing on the idea, meaning basically we have a discourse. At the end of the day, humans are not like animals. We have the capacity to communicate. We have the capacity to think and rationalize. We have the capacity to recognize true from false. So it has to be a discourse. It has to be a discussion. What Muslims invite everybody is, let's have a discussion. What others, and let me just state that basically as a fact, what others unfortunately basically propose is wars, is genocide, is forcing their will, their point of view upon others by the power of the weapons and the bombs. As Muslims, we're always calling everybody on earth, let's have a discussion. Let's basically see how we can live together as human beings.
Sheikh, if you look at communism, for instance, communism fell apart.
What is that?
Because
communism?
Yes, communism fell apart because it said, well, in many ways it went against human instincts. The idea that there is a creator and that we are here with a purpose, and that God, and there's a creator who created all of us. It fell apart. It failed. Millions of people were killed in order to somehow get for people to believe in this, and obviously it did not happen. Then you have capitalism today. That is, what does capitalism want, Sheikh? I mean, is it against the instinct of human minds, instinct of human beings? Is it against, what is it that's there in capitalism that's going to say that human beings are going to just now reject the way they rejected communism?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, communism basically was a little bit more, you can say, in direct conflict with the human nature, right? The human nature, like even babies, even like, well, not necessarily babies, but toddlers, I would say, there's research that says basically recognize that there is a creator for the universe. There's an agency behind the world, right? There's research now that suggests that toddlers actually presume that there is an agency behind the worlds, God, basically, right? So it's this natural tendency to recognize that there is a cause for this whole universe, because things don't just come out of nothing. Yes, it's very simple. It's very natural. It's very intuitive. Communism basically went in direct conflict with that. They're like, no, there's no God. So people had to basically kind of, you can say, have a cognitive dissonance living under communism. They had an internal conflict. That, look, man, it's hard to believe that there's nothing out there and we just came out of nothing. Or basically we're just eternal. We're just been there forever, which doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? Capitalism basically was a little bit more subtle, right? They're like, look, God could exist, but God has no place in human life within the public realm or the state, the government, the governance, which is why secularism is the creed or the doctrine behind this capitalist system, right? So the Europeans basically and this is where basically we need to go back to history to understand what's the situation today. Why are we in today's world today? The Renaissance, which was the result of the interaction between East and West during the Crusade, you can say elevated the Western mind to start thinking about a way to detach or emancipate, or really liberate themselves, or free themselves from the shackles of the church. And so people had different reactions to the church. The church was subduing people in multiple ways. And number one, there's no free thinking. The church basically would say, look, you need to basically think as the Pope says. You need to believe what the scripture says. Right, wrong, doesn't matter. And unfortunately, these scriptures that they have, since they're some of them basically are man-made, some of them are altered, whatever it is. We're not here to have a discussion about scriptures, but some of the stuff in the scripture negated or were in contradiction with the human mind. So people had conflicts. The second thing that the church did in Europe during the Middle Ages, which is a 1,000 years period, really of they call it the Dark Ages because it was pretty bad, pretty regressive and backwards. The second thing, which is unfortunately the Muslims also have today. So today Muslims don't want to. Many people unfortunately don't want Muslims to think. So that's number one. Number two is what they call the divine rights or the divine right of kings. The divine right of kings, meaning that you have to obey the ruler, because the ruler in Europe was set up by God or by the Pope, which is inspired by God, and all the Christian believers, must obey the ruler or the monarchy back then, basically, even if they lash your back or take your money, right? So it's something that we have today, unfortunately, which is obedience to the tyrants. Like, this is what the church basically instilled in people. So these kind of these type of tyranny by the church deprived people from creativity, deprived people from thinking, deprived people from progress in life, to have a decent life, to have decency, to have dignity, right? And definitely the monarchy itself basically inflicted lots of injustice in society, where people basically didn't have the right to have a say. So this structure of life after the Crusades, lots of Christian believers, Christian Europeans, got inspired. They saw religious people, the Muslims, who are living in societies that are just and dignified. They're thinking. They use their mind. They rationalize. They speak about science and philosophy. So they were inspired by that. So there was a reaction. So they pushed back on the church, and they split into two camps. One that basically wanted to remove the church from life fully, which were the atheists. And there's others which were a little bit more the majority. You can say the majority were like, look, we don't want to. We were okay with being believers too. We don't want to take out belief, but we need to sideline the church away from public life. So this is where the birth of secularism came about. And from the secular idea in the 1600s, John Locke specifically basically came about with, he's the father of liberalism. came about with the rest of the formula. So the Western world sets God totally on the side, and they restrict that to become something personal, right? So as you can see now, this is still in contradiction to the human mind. That is in contradiction. You ask me, well, how does it contradict? Well, that's partly it. Number two, the way it also contradicts with human nature is a human being needs security, needs in capitalism. The main point about capitalism as a system is every single individual is on their own, right? Everybody can compete in life in isolation from everybody else. The role of the state is not to support individuals who are weak or who are struggling. The role of the state is just to kind of keep the land, equal for equal competition. What that does basically, again, the bigger guys crushes the smaller guys. Capitalism to me is just it's a nice marketing campaign for the old empires, where it's still basically, as we said earlier, the powerful crushes and imposes their will upon the weak. It's just how the Europeans dealt with it is through marketing, through basically publicity and public relations campaigns, where they give the illusion of people to have a right to vote, to have a right to have a say. And unfortunately, nobody has a right in dictating any law. I mean, to be honest, basically, the question I always ask people, if the majority of, let's say, Americans have really a right to have a say, why would they basically be paying the most taxes then? Right? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, if the majority, which is basically are, let's say, poor or middle class, then the middle class and the poor class would say, look, we're the majority. We're going to pay zero taxes, and the rich will pay all the taxes because it's democracy. But very, very vividly, they don't have a say, because the middle class, unfortunately, gets to pay most of the taxes that run the country, and then the rich people get the subsidies. Again, without getting too much into that, but
there's an important point that you made, Sheikh, which is obedience to the tyrants, which is unfortunately very common in the Muslim lands. The idea that even supposedly the most thinking people amongst us, what they call scholars today, you see a lot of this type of narrative, this type of discussion, this type of this thinking comes out from the scholars. Now, I guess the question to you is that when you look or you study the West, you study the European challenge to the church, was that they were talking to the so-called clerical class, or the church scholars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the clergy. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sheikh, if you look at people like Sayyid Qutb, you look at people like Abu Ala al-Mawdudi, Israr Ahmad, Hassan Banna, Sheikh Taqi-ud-Din Nabhani, many scholars that we know, we study. Other than, of course, Sheikh Taqi-ud-Din Nabhani, many of the scholars that I mentioned earlier did not go to a madrasa type system where they became traditional scholars. But they are the ones that are impacting the most in the Muslim world today, as far as seeking change and wanting change. Why is it that, what happened, Sheikh, in this scholarly class, that they became so adamant about protecting the tyrants rather than allowing the masses to think on their own?
Well, it's not about basically what happened to the scholarly class. It's about basically who the governments, allowed to be promoted. Right? It's just like a promotion activity. Like the governments, they promote the people that are aligned with their narrative. So for you to get promoted from like a small scholar to bigger scholar, to become like a lead scholar within Al-Azhar or within other institutions or within the Ministry of Religious Affairs in most of the Muslim world, right? I don't want to say almost of the Muslim world. You have to align with the policies and the viewpoints of the government.
No,
so
that I understand, but I'm saying the thinkers did not come out of these schools.
Oh, definitely, because these schools, are not made to make people think. These schools, like these, who goes to the madrasas and even Al-Azhar? I have lots of friends who basically studied Al-Azhar. The cutoff average to get into the Azhar is 55%, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or 60%, whatever it is. It's at the lower end. I don't want to give numbers because I don't remember the exact numbers, but if you have, let's say, a 90 plus average, you go to medicine, you go to engineering. But the ones that go to Al-Azhar basically usually are the ones who are at the lower stack of the high schoolers. Same thing with the madrasas in the Diyubandi, or in the subcontinent and so forth. It's everywhere. It's not like one specific country. Why? Because the state does not encourage people to be scholars. Like, if you become a scholar for all your life, like what are you going to be, right? Like during, for example, if we go back to Harun al-Rashid during the golden age of Baghdad, right? During the Abbasid dynasty, the house of the Bayt al-Hikmah, the house of wisdom, right? The Harun Rashid used to basically sometimes give gold the weight of the poet, or the weight of the books. Like if a person write a book, he gives them gold as much as the weight of the book. Imagine. So the scholars basically were going to be rich. The scholars were going to basically be, so there's enhancement. There's incentives to basically build scholarship. And if you become a scholar, what is a scholar, by the way, in Islam? A scholar is a person who is law professional. But these countries don't run by the law of the Quran and Sunnah. So what are they going to be doing? So scholars today, they become scholars to teach. And then the students basically grow to become teachers, so they teach. And their students become teachers, so they teach. And we just have this cycle of basically teach and learn and teach and learn and teach and learn, and call for no change.
So is it,
and that's why.
So now I guess that's a very important point here. But because they're just teaching and learning, Sheikh, so they're not aware of the reality of their societies, their communities that they live in. So then, because you're not in contact with that, there's no thinking taking place. There's no new thinking taking place. I guess what I'm really asking, Sheikh, is that it takes a lot to ask the public to obey tyrants, because that's literally against human nature.
Yeah, but that's what we have today. Like, unfortunately, multiple schools, academic schools, basically in multiple countries. That's what these scholars teach. They teach that basically you need to obey the rulers no matter what, even if they lash you back and take your money. They twist they twist certain hadith to basically kind of create that fake meaning. It's and definitely that's totally wrong. I still remember Sheikh Dadu, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him and prolong his life, benefit the ummah. He broke it down. He's like, what are you talking about? Basically, he's like, you need to be patient if he lashes you back with justice, and if he takes your money with justice. Like, since when basically Islam promotes injustice? The whole message of Islam, as I just earlier basically spoke about justice for everybody, Muslims and non-Muslims, blacks and whites, north and south. Like, justice is the main theme of the Islamic idea, right? Islamic proposal, the Islamic paradigm, sorry. The main word in it is justice. When we say La ilaha illallah, we're saying nobody has the right to dictate what is just and what is unjust except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is really what this is what the shahada means. Is that the law setter, the divine is the divine. The law setter is the divine. That's what it is. And unfortunately today we have lots of messages that are totally in contradiction to as you said, this intuitive sense of justice, and people basically buy it and they move on. Why? Because we have a disease in the heart. The ummah needs to be cleansed. And today, I'm a person, maybe after a journey of a few decades in the da'wah, I believe Imam al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, and I think you discussed that basically with Akhwana Abdul Wahid, basically from the UK. I love that discussion. And Abdul Qadir al-Jilani. Like, these two schools realized that progress and revival cannot happen with an ummah that has lots of diseases in the hearts. And and those two things, meaning intellectualism and spirituality, or spiritual cleansing, must happen in tandem. They have to happen together. Because literally, if you give the Islamic ideals to a person who has, let's say, ego, let's say has envy, how are they, like, he or she basically going to carry this message alongside their comrades, alongside the other Muslims? They're going to be always fighting. I mean, you just told me basically earlier before the session that you had a couple of mashayikh or a couple of Muslim people basically call you He's like, yo, Sheikh Usta, we don't agree with his views. Why are you inviting him? Well, this is a disease. Today, as Muslims, we cannot love each other. We cannot accept each other with our differences. We can't just accept the main paradigm of Islam, which is, look, we're calling humanity to live under the shade of justice. And we might have different approaches for it. We might have different fiqh for it. Even we might have even different views within the branches of the science of Tawheed. But no. There's people basically who, by the way, I said three things that basically the clergy in Europe had. I mentioned two. I kept the third for a little bit. Now it is sectarianism, religious sectarianism, which divided Europe and divided the Protestants from the Orthodox, from the Catholics, and created wars and havoc and killings and murder within Europe for centuries, not decades, for centuries and centuries. So people were fed up. Today, if we want to revive as an ummah, we need to basically deal with these three issues that Europe had also. Number one is we need to start thinking. We can't just basically be blind followers, because unfortunately we can be misled by the clergy, like the clergy of Europe basically misled their people, like the clergy of Bani Israel misled the early Muslims of Bani Israel, like today is happening. Number two, we need to understand that Islam is anti-tyranny. There's no such thing as basically obey tyrants. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in the Quran, it doesn't exist in the Sunnah. Number three, we need to have tolerance within an Islamic context. That means people who might have different views in fiqh, in branches of the aqaid, in Islamic activism. And what's the problem with basically the Ikhwan al-Muslimin working with the Sufis, working with the Salafis, working with the Tahriris, working with the Tablighis all together? What's the problem? Why is everybody basically hating on everybody else? That's why we're not going to go anywhere until we resolve this. We need to first cleanse our hearts from the diseases of the hearts, like ego and envy and so forth, and hate. And number two, basically realize that there's only one da'wah of the deen of Islam, which is basically the human beings as societies and as individuals, living by the law and order of Allah that creates justice for everybody, for people of all backgrounds and colors.
No, of course, I agree. I mean, obviously, ummatukum ummatan wahida, we're one ummah, and we have to think like one ummah. But I'm going to come back to this issue that you just brought up. But here's the thing, Sheikh. Yani, you said there's no such thing as accepting tyranny. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because this next 2-3 weeks, we have a lot of very special scholars coming to Chicago, and they're speaking in many, many masajid. And they're one, if you want to say that, message to the whole ummah is that we have to accept, the ruler can whip you and take your money, and you just should say sama'na wa ta'na. And this will be the message for the next 3 days, from the Jummah khutbahs, the khatibs are saying these things, and the next. Sheikh, that hadith that talks about even if he whips your back or takes your money, and a hadith such as these, what are they really talking about? What is the reality behind those hadith?
I'll give you the quick fiqhi, explanation of this. This hadith, akhi, is like taking. By the way, it's only this hadith. By the way, there's not much other than this one. But applying this hadith, okay, in today's world, is like taking the rights of a wife and applying it to a prostitute. Okay, if somebody's doing zina, you don't come and basically get me the ahkam of al-zawaj wa zawja and you apply it on azaniya. Okay? So they're two different ahkam. Yeah, sure, this is a female that you're having sexual relationship with, and this is a female you're having sexual relationship with. But one applies, the hadith that we're talking about applies to a legal marriage. Okay? Period. This hadith is speaking about a real ruler that the Muslimin agree to have, or is set legally by the Islamic community, and is ruling by the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then maximum that would happen between the ruled and the ruler is that they might see difference of opinion within the law, and then the ruler gets to have the say. And the ruler says, look, for example, I'll give you a real example from the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, from the best of the people after the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu and Fatima bint Muhammad alayhi salam, Fatima al-Zahra. So Fatima alayhi salam, after Rasul died, she thought that basically a specific land was supposed to be kept for her as inheritance from the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's how she thought from an Islamic perspective. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq says no, the prophets do not basically leave any inheritance. So he took the land into Bayt al-Mal. He took her money, even if it, see, when the hadith now applies. Fatima alayhi salam did not agree. She's like, you're taking my money away, you're taking my rights away. And Abu Bakr says, well, this is the Sharia of Allah. This is what the Rasul taught me, is that the messengers don't leave money to anybody. They don't leave money as inheritance. He took her money away from her perspective. So what did Allah tell her? What did the Rasul tell her? The hadith applies. Even if he takes your money, you need to obey. So Fatima alayhi salam had to obey Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, who is a legit ruler, ruling by the Sharia, from his understanding of what's right and wrong, based upon the Quran and Sunnah. So she had to obey. You see what I'm saying? And take that and وقس على ذلك, meaning basically measure upon this as you wish. But you apply these hadith basically to people who are not ruling by justice, and people who were not chosen by the Ummah, people who were forced to be our rulers by the colonial Westerners since World War I. It doesn't make sense. This is literally comparing a prostitute or a zania to a zawja.
No, that's Jazakallah khair for clarifying that, especially the idea that we're talking about, even if he whips your back, it has to be done by justice. If not, no human being has a right to just whip somebody's back. And the thing, Sheikh, this has a lot of effects even in the da'wah, when you are speaking even to the kuffar, those who are, I mean, one of the reasons Islam spread was because of justice. Islam spread because of justice. People looked at Islam and said, we want this system that even takes the rulers accountable. And if the ruler's back has to be whipped, then it will be whipped. So,
correct.
Now, Sheikh, when you mentioned three things. Number one was thinking that, and number two, it says stop being misled. And number three, no such thing as accepting tyranny. If you stop being misled, Sheikh, a lot of times we get a question that how do we differentiate? We are not scholars. We are not, we're average students. We're just average amatun nas. How do we, when scholars with, these looks and titles are bombarding us with such things, how do we differentiate in haqq and batil?
Wallahi, akhi, there's only one way. For me, there's only one way, basically, for laymen, for the regular ammi, the regular layman, to recognize who is the proper scholar versus who is the number one is they need to understand the basic tenets that nobody would disagree with in Islam. Okay, what is for example? So people tell me, how do we recognize those? I'm like, look, from a layman perspective, ya akhi, look at the stories of the Anbiya. Did Musa alayhi salam tell his people, obey Fir'aun, you have to be patient? If he did, khalas, then follow his footsteps. The stories of the Anbiya are the most simplest thing. Why? Because we use them for our children. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put them in the Quran and told us waqsis al-qasas, and we relate stories because we understand the message of the Anbiya from these qasas in the Quran. So I'm going to tell the Ami, don't read the complex fiqh. Just read the qisas al-Anbiya, the stories of the prophets. And then basically look at the scholars. If they act like these Anbiya, then alhamdulillah. If they're acting in a contradiction to these Anbiya, then we have a problem. Right? And definitely the Ami needs to start learning and gaining knowledge and asking questions and keeping his rational mind, working. Otherwise, لا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of judgment will hold him accountable. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ? Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honor the human being with the gift of the mind and the aql? Why? Because you need to recognize what's right and wrong. وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ. We've given him the ability to differentiate right from wrong. So nobody on earth can stand in front of Allah on the day of judgment and say, oh Allah, I didn't have the ability to differentiate. Ya akhi, Allah said in the Quran, وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ. We have given him the ability to differentiate right from wrong. So don't come and basically whine on the day of judgment saying that I couldn't, because you're going to be in trouble. No, it is easy to differentiate the haqq from the batil, justice from injustice, and the scholars that are basically really holding on to firm upon the rope of Allah, and those who are basically there for a job to just make a paycheck at the end of the month.
Sheikh, why is it that such few people recognize the haqq the way it is, Sheikh?
أخي والله it's the shaitan. What can we say? It's the shaitan. It's the end of times. We're living in the end of times. Today, the shaitan have got the upper hand. The Muslimin are filled with al-wahn. Rasulullah looked at the ummah today. I mean, look at this hadith. Rasulullah looked at this ummah. And it says, أنتم غثاء كغثاء السيل. This hurts a lot when the Rasulullah looks at our ummah, looks at us. Because people say the hadith as if basically Rasulullah speaking about somebody else. Look at us as the Ummah of Islam, the 2 billion today. He says, you guys are like the fluff of the water streams. The water streams, basically, after it rains, basically it has all the garbage with it, all the twigs and the tree branches, and sometimes basically dirty stuff, flowing. This is what this is what he's saying, that we're garbage type of thing, basically, in a nice way. That the Ummah, the 2 billion, have left their deen and became so focused on the dunya. Everybody cares about their status. Everybody cares about their own image. Everybody cares about their own monies. Nobody cares about everybody. Like, look at how the Rasul will be resurrected. Yawm al-Qiyamah. He's not going to say nafsi, nafsi. He's going to say ummati, ummati. This is what differentiates the Rasul. That's why he is number one. Because he cares about other people. Because he was selfless. Because he cares about others. Where's the hearts that are empathetic? Where's the hearts that are full of mercy? Where's the hearts that love humanity? Where's the hearts that love justice? Where's the hearts that basically, he loves animals and cares for animals, cares for cats and dogs and birds and bees, and where's the people that cares about the environment? The Rasulullah stood in front of a little, a spring. It says, whoever wastes water in a spring, on a stream, he'll be held accountable. This heart that cares, this heart that basically, look at Umar al-Khattab says, if a goat trips in the roads of Iraq, Allah subhanahu will ask Umar ibn Khattab about it. This is the type of empathy, this is the type of care, this is the type of mercy that's supposed to be filling the hearts of the believers, let alone the scholars. We've lost that. We became so selfish, so egoistic, so we care just about ourselves and nothing else. We need to build that first to be able to be on the footsteps of the Anbiya alayhim salam.
Sheikh, you're talking about 2 billion people, let's say especially about the Islamic world. How do you make such a huge amount of people become normal to tyranny?
Wallahi, this is subhanAllah. This is just the old formula from the empires of the past. It's just it's called political socialization, and from a technical term perspective, political socialization. You can look it up later. It's really basically people like people love conformity. Conformity is easy. People love ease, right? The human nature has a tendency to be lazy, to like rest and to like a life of ease. And this is the test. The test is basically where we do mujahadat an-nafs. We struggle against ourselves. So people love conformity. Conformity is easy. So this is how it happens. Basically, you create this conformity within society to obey.
The people in the West, they are not conforming. Is that? I mean, I guess because you're talking about. No,
everybody's even here basically.
But Sheikh, in the West, well, of course, now there is. Let me ask you this. I mean, how important is political awareness to confront political socialization?
Oh, 100%. This is the only way, basically, to confront it. Political awareness is the only way to confront. Like, look, the Americans, for example. Let's take the Americans, for example. The Americans of today are not like the Americans of the 18th century. In the 18th century, in the 1750s, the American man and the American woman were politically aware, and they had an aspiration, they had a dream. They had a dream to basically build their own state, their own republic, their own, a system that is free, that's liberated, and to push back on the tyranny of the British Empire. You need to understand, before the American Revolution wasn't the child of its own same day. It wasn't born the same day. It was a child of a two decades at least of work, hard work of du'at. I'm du'at basically from a liberal perspective, really. They used to be called the sons of liberty and the daughters of liberty. They had their halaqat, they had their pamphlets, they had their, meetings, and they started spreading the message of unifying the 13 colonies and building a republic and freeing themselves from the British Empire within the 13 initial colonies. That's where basically, like Thomas Jefferson, this just didn't fall from the skies. John Adams and George Washington and all these people basically were behind. They were leading the intellectual discourse, the political awareness of the American people to have a dream of being free from the British imperialism, to have a dream about a republic that has a specific value system based upon liberal views. And after a couple of decades of this da'wah, the spark, which was the tax law basically by King George, if I'm not mistaken, it created the right environment to push back, and people were ready. And that's why George Washington and his people basically pushed back. They were organized already. Like, the people don't just come together and obey leadership. They organized together. They pushed back on the British. They got support from the French. And they kicked out the British and unified the 13 colonies and created the American Constitution and built their own state and decided their own destiny. This is what the Muslims need to do today. Today, the Muslims need to understand. They need to have a dream. They need to have an aspiration of unification. We need to unify. We have 57 states, countries. Maybe maybe also as Muslims we can start with like 13 of these countries, unify them together, and then unify the rest of the Muslim world, just like the Americans have done. I think the Americans have a great example for us to understand how things happen in the modern context. But our only example, just so it can basically be very clear, is Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he did the same thing. He unified two tribes called Al-Aws and the Khazraj into one state which became called Madinatul Rasul, the state of the messenger. Yeah, the city means the state. City here, city state. The city state of the messenger, of the prophet of God, or the city state of light. And that basically unified the rest of the tribes in Arabia to unify all of the Arabs together and to spread the light of Islam to everybody else. I mean, you need to understand, like, basically Islam is so merciful. You still have Christian communities 1,500 years ago who were living wherever they were in the Muslim world, whether in Iraq, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan, in Palestine, untouched. They're still Christian until today. Why? Because we've treated them with justice. We've treated them with dignity. We had a law and order that respects minorities and respects every human being. For example, look at how France is treating their minorities. France is a dictatorship. The French are Nazis. Macron is a Nazi. And let's say it as it is, basically. They're fascist. They don't want to allow individuals who have the right to wear whatever they want to wear. No, you can't wear this. You can't wear this. You can't wear this. You can't marry this way. You can't divorce this way. You can't inherit this way. We can't have custody this way. All these things, in an Islamic context, we respect the rules of the minority. The minorities can marry like they wish. They can divorce like they wish. They have their own, custody rules, divorce rules, inheritance rules to a certain extent. Their food stuff. We as Muslims allow Christians to eat pork and drink alcohol within their communities. If a priest basically says this couple is divorced, khalas, we accept it. We don't go say, oh no, Islamically you have to come to the Islamic court, like they do here. Oh, you can't marry this, you can't marry. No, khalas, they have their own marriage rules, they all have divorce rules. And we respect the rules of these minorities. Islam teaches us that. Look at the fascist French. I'm going fascist French. The fascist French. No, you can't.
Hey man, we like French fries here, bro.
Yeah, sorry, bro.
Let me on a bit. We have few questions that are coming up, but before I ask the questions coming from the audience, I have one more question, Sheikh. When you're looking at the American empire, I really believe that it is falling apart. The values there's basically nothing to stand on, and then that means it's unstable. And when powers become unstable, they're desperate to survive. They try everything that they can to But Sheikh, we don't have. I mean, you have to have something, a system other than. Yeah, let's say I'm not saying the American empire is going to fall tomorrow, but there always has to be something that can stabilize the system.
An alternative, yes, an alternative, definitely.
Other than alternative, yeah. I mean, well, of course, alternative, but meaning, does it have to exist at that moment when destabilization of power takes place, any superpower of the time, or how does this happen, Sheikh, from your understanding of history?
Yeah. Allah Barak Fik is a very good question. Like, we can discuss it in two ways. We can discuss it on a theoretical, historical level, or we can discuss it in a current affairs level. Okay? The Americans right now, their biggest problem, akhi, is not the Muslimin. The biggest problem for the Americans today is China. Okay. The second biggest problem is the Muslimin. But the first problem, after the pivot with Obama and Hillary Clinton, basically, declaring basically that there's now a new foreign policy direction for the American empire, is now focusing on the Asia Pacific. Now, what is the biggest advantage of the United States against the Chinese? Now, people could say, well, military power, economy, this, that. Well, hold on one second. I'm a guy who I did my MBA in the United States. I visited China on a delegation with my MBA class. We visited basically most of the industries there. We just some high profile people basically, and I can tell you the Chinese, and that was 15 years ago. The Chinese are filling the gap so quickly. It's not even funny. Okay, it's not funny. Military wise, sure, there's a gap. It's becoming narrow and narrow and narrow every day. Economy basically is becoming narrow and narrow. Maybe even the Chinese are gonna surpass the Americans soon. Political, let's say the political gap they're filling. Now, the only thing that the Chinese cannot fill the gap in is ideology, soft power. You see what I'm saying? Hollywood, basically, and what the Americans stood for. The Americans stood for, basically, if you go back to World War II, the Americans were the most popular country in the world. Everybody wanted to be American. Everybody wanted to travel to America. Everybody wanted to immigrate to America. America was the land of the free, the American dream. Well, that was smashed, especially today. During the last 48 days, people have seen the hypocrisy of the system, the flimsiness of the system. The soft power is gone. So now there's a leveled field between the Americans and the Chinese, that the Chinese can now overcome the Americans, because China will come and basically say, look, you're full of it. You have nothing to stand for. We've seen it before. All these organizations that you claim basically are supposed to be the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is just garbage. And unfortunately, this is what the world have noticed. So what will happen is basically those two big empires will continue to now, unfortunately, challenge each other, with risking all of humanity, unfortunately, in a full-fledged world war, that they're going to weaken each other.
This is a very important point, Sheikh. I mean, what we are seeing in Gaza, are you saying that, look, this is a competition between Americans and the Chinese, and America is in a hurry to balance, make sure that it's a balanced game, and in order to do that, it needs to eliminate anything else that might come in the way, whichever way, doesn't matter the means. Is this what we're seeing in Gaza? I guess that America is saying that, look, we don't have time to deal with this in ideological level, idea, this, that, rights. Let's just finish them all, and then let's just take care of what China needs, what China is presenting.
No, I think Biden made a huge mistake. The Biden administration could not force Netanyahu to not kill civilians. I mean, they called for it. They begged him for 50 days to not kill civilians, because they know it hurts their world standing. It hurts their ideological positioning, let's say. And he didn't care, right? Why? Because Biden did not care about Netanyahu. Did not care about, let's not get into too much. I mean, we can have a whole political session.
Oh, of course. No, you mentioned a very interesting point. So I was just trying to figure out that, is
Biden wanted to discredit Netanyahu. Netanyahu basically, you can say, reciprocated the favor, and unfortunately put him in a very bad spot. The reason Netanyahu basically killed so much civilians is, number one, revenge, because they couldn't do much about what happened. And number two is to basically get back to discredit Biden and his administration. Now, what happened with in Biden's administration? You had 200 people who wrote a letter in the State Department criticizing Biden. Many people basically resigned. It was a disaster from a political perspective for Biden and the standing of the United States. So his, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to win the next election. Why? Because of what happened in Gaza. So what happened in Gaza, if we zoom out and we look at it from a global lens, this is going to be a game changer, a turning point in history, because as I said, the Americans have lost their standing as a world power from an ideological perspective. And that's what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is basically the Americans,
that's what I wanted to kind of emphasize on. Is that what we're seeing? That now the Chinese can come and say, "Look, we can do whatever we want in Taiwan, for instance. You have no way of coming and telling us what to do. So keep your mouth shut." And so I guess that was okay. Let's go to the questions. Okay, let's take the first question here. Don't you think that don't you think that cleaning our hearts is generalized term which can have different interpretation? So isn't it necessary to put a objective criteria or a principle at max?
Yeah. So look, cleansing the heart is in Islam. Islam is three things. Akhi or ukhti. Number one is iman. So it's aqidah. It's a belief system that is documented very well for the last 1400 years in the books of aqidah and tawheed by the scholars of Islam. Number two is Islam, which is basically the law itself, the ahkam, and this is where the Sharia comes in, and that's basically documented very well in the fiqh for the last 1500 years. Excuse me. The third thing is ihsan. Ihsan is basically purification of the heart. And that also, akhi, and this is a problem, this also is documented very well in the books of tasawwuf and tazkiyah for the last 1400 years. So we need to understand that basically when we say purifying your heart, it's not like it's not a term I'm using today from a modern perspective. There is a discipline, there's a whole discipline in Islam for purification of the heart. So you read these books, and you don't read these books basically. So you need to basically get a doctor. Like most people have. Everybody has a family doctor, right? None of us basically have a spiritual heart.
We need insurance for that, Sheikh.
Exactly. We need insurance. So that's the issue. Most people don't. Most people basically think Islam is only like beliefs and behaviors. No, there's a third component. There's a third dimension that has been forgotten due to a specific trend in the last, let's say, 70 years, which really discredited this third discipline of tazkiyah. Right? Tazkiyah is a discipline that is Islamic at heart. It is something that just like the fiqh was documented, just like the tawheed was documented, the science of tazkiyah was documented for the last 1500 years. There's schools of thoughts about this also, and so forth, just like the other two domains. Yeah.
All right, let's take the second next question, inshallah. Taking into the consideration that MBS dismantled the Al-Wahhabi movement and drained their funds, are we finally going to see mitigation of sectarianism among Muslims? At Kenai Kiyoshi.
Allah, may Allah bless the one who's asking the question. I hope so, because definitely, its movement basically created lots of sectarianism in the Ummah. That being said, there is sectarianism everywhere. There's a problem. Like Sufis have sectarianism, a lot of it. Ikhwanis have lots of sectarianism. Even all the movements, unfortunately, have lots of sectarianism. This disease is everywhere, unfortunately. You see what I'm saying? Maybe there was a specific movement that, like, let's say, you can say championed sectarianism. Sure, I understand where you're coming from, but everybody has it. What we need to understand, we need to love everybody. We need to love every Muslim who is decent, who is purified, who is working for Islam, who's going back to the Quran and Sunnah and following basically the four madhahib, right? The four madhahib is what we consider basically the mainstream Islam. Orthodoxy is the four madhahib. You know what I'm saying? But what does that mean for madhab? You don't need to necessarily restrict yourself to a madhab, but you need to restrict yourselves to basically how the madhahib basically dealt with the Quran and Sunnah, and live by those teachings. You see what I'm saying?
There is just a question. I'm going to follow up on what she's saying. I'm not sure if but aqliya, obviously there's aqliya and there's nafsiya. I mean, obviously you are talking about the work that needs to be done on the nafs, the tasawwuf and everything else. Sheikh, but is there a disparity here? I mean, especially amongst Muslims in movements and Muslims, just general Muslims, where there is a lot of emphasis on the aqliya, on trying to understand, because obviously it's because of the decline, the emphasis has been put on trying to understand the deen so that we come out of this decline. And on the other hand,
it depends on which movement.
Okay.
So let's say the Tabligh, for example, the Jamaat al-Tabligh and the Sufiya, they focus on the nafsiyya. They focus on the disposition of the heart and the purification. The Salafi movement and Hizb al-Tahrir, for example, they focus on the aqliyya. They focus on the ilm and the intellectualism and so forth. Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimin, basically, also you can say they're more like they focus on purification, also just like the Tabligh and the Sufiya. Depends. Like the Ikhwan al-Muslimin has a Salafi side and has a Sufi side. Depends on which one is in. So it can be here, it could be there. Unfortunately, all of them basically lean towards one aspect, but we've lost the balance. So today, for example, in the I3 Institute, we're trying to regain this balance between both. And that's why our slogan or our motto, you can say, is we wanna learn from all these five movements and try to take the best from all of them. So we take, for example, the tazkiyah and the akhlaq from the Sufiya. We take the focus on the Quran and Sunnah and the dalil and the evidence and the purification of the aqidah from the Salafiyya. We take the focus on the salah and the khuruj from the Tabligh, may Allah bless them. We take from the Ikhwan a lot, basically, to be honest, from Sheikh Hassan al-Banna rahimahullah, which is the full integrated, basically, tarbiyah development model. We take the community service and activism, and you understand what I'm saying. Like, we also basically take the political awareness from Hizb al-Tahrir and the debating and debunking the isms and so forth. So this is how I see things today, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to basically perfect ourselves. We will never reach perfection. We all have shortcomings, and we're going to continue to have shortcomings until we reach the grave. But we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness.
Right. That opened up a lot of can of worms, but that's the next discussion, inshallah. Is there any other questions, Sheikh? Next question. If the we need change is a political change, does it mean an usuli methodology or a generalized methodology? Is the objective the same, which can be achieved by many ways at max CAC?
Sorry, the question went.
Let me read that question again. I'm confused reading it. Can you put that up there again, Sheikh? If we need change, I guess if the change is political change, does it need an? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I see what you're saying. So, if you're looking for political change, Sheikh, does it have to come? Does it have to have usuli, meaning principled methodology, in order to gain that change?
I think the questioner basically is mixing things together. When we speak about any human behavior, we speak about hukum shar'i from the sharia, from the fiqh. So when we speak about methodology of change, it has to basically be from the Quran and Sunnah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ. Meaning, this is my, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, tells his prophet, proclaim, O Muhammad, to the people that this is my path. What is my path? Making da'wah to Allah upon basira. Basira means from the Sharia, from the Quran and Sunnah, based upon wahi, basically. So the methodology of change must come from the Shara, from the Quran and Sunnah. And the methodology of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam is what's binding. It's binding. It's a must. But what most people don't understand is that the methodology of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from his seerah is not one. Multiple scholars could study it and reach different ijtihadat, right? So many jama'at might have differences of opinion of what is really the methodology of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, when he speaks about usuli, if that means basic going back to changing ideas and changing basically paradigm, having paradigm shift and debunking isms and making sure that we have the right ideological
Sheikh, look,
concept.
Here's the thing. I mean, if someone can ask you that, look, are you telling me that the people of Gaza don't have the nafsiyah that is needed for change? I mean, or is it that they're missing the political understanding that what needs to change? Because, I mean, subhanAllah, I think they're teaching the whole Muslim world, if not every human being, the connection to Allah Azza wa Jal.
The patience and the perseverance of the people of Gaza is definitely, you can say, unmatched. But see, it's not about Gaza or not Gaza, it's about the Ummah.
No, I'm saying, I guess if Gaza represents the Muslim world, let's say, if Gaza represents the Muslim world,
if people have the same
are we
iman
saying
of
that
the
we are
people,
not connected to Allah Azza wa Jalla? Is that what's missing? I mean, people, or is it that there's a certain type of understanding that is needed that brings the change that we are seeking?
Yeah, I'm going to answer straight, very, very straight on, okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا فَتَفْشَلُوا وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ. Meaning, obey Allah and His Messenger and do not fight amongst each other. Do not bicker and fight and divide amongst each other. Otherwise, you're going to fail and you'll become weak. See what I'm saying? So victory needs strength. Victory needs power. Allah is saying power, power and victory. Allah is saying two things. Power and victory are the result of unity. But we're divided. Yeah, we're divided. Look, over here, even in the West, there's no tyrants, there's no this, there's no that. We're just Muslims. Look at how much hate we have. Look how much division we have. Are we loving one another? Are we really one unified community now? We need to unify the hearts where we understand and we become tolerant to each other. Put our hands together. If you go to the Tabligis, they don't want to work with anybody else except Tabligh. This is their official stance, unfortunately. If you go to the Tahriris, same thing. They don't want to work except with the Tahriris. If you go with the Ikhwanis, they don't want to work except with the Ikhwanis. If you go with the Salafis, they only want to work with Salafis because they are the purified ones. They are the chosen ones. If you go to the Sufis, also again, it's a mess. We have a mess today. Today, I'm going to call out.
But but Sheikh, is that a mess or is that human?
It's a mess. No. We need to learn. Hold on. We need to learn to differ but love each other. To differ and collaborate.
I guess that's what I was asking you, because difference of opinion is. Look, Sheikh, I mean, one of the things that you pointed in one of the three things that said, number one was thinking, and obviously any thinking person will have a difference of opinion from another thinking person. So you're not saying thinking or not having different understanding is not the issue here. It's that we need to understand that this is natural disposition of human beings, that they do have difference of opinions, but as long as the source is the same. We
need to get rid of sectarianism. Sectarianism is asabiyya. Sectarianism is the Ummah today. So as I said, basically there's really three things that Europe had. Number one is basically independent thinking, or let's call it evidence-based independent thinking. Number two is this basically obeying the tyrants. Number three is sectarianism. Once we get rid of these three things from the public discourse and from the hearts and minds of the Muslimin, we will be prepared to unify at a political level. You see what I'm saying? And that's why we need a vision. We need a vision to unify us. We need, like, as I said, the Americans have been able to unify. Like the person from Pennsylvania didn't say, I'm a Pennsylvanian. The Virginian didn't say, I'm a Virginian. He said, look, we're all Americans. We're all Americans. We want to build America Today we need the Muslims to say we want to build Islam. We don't want like I'm Sufi, he's Salafi, yani he's Muqtadi', he's that, he's he's less of a Muslim. We don't beware of him. We're worried about that person. Beware of that person.
Sheikh, I don't know if the majority of the Muslims think that way, Sheikh. To be honest, I think there are. Here's the thing: if we are looking at the movement as the mouthpieces of the masses, then fine, I can see that.
Yes.
I think, but majority of the Muslims, when they are looking at the situation in Gaza, I think everyone agrees that the armies need to go in. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That, like, but again, we'll come back to this. You're opening too many questions, and this is amazing because this is what I actually wanted. Let me take these questions. I don't want to be yelled at because I'm not taking questions. Go ahead.
Let me tell you what. Give me 1 second. Give me one. Let me say one more verse from the Quran. Allah Subhanahu says about the Jews, which were the Muslims of the time back then. Yeah? They were the Muslims of the time. It says وَمِنْهُمْ أُمِّيُّونَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ الْكِتَابَ إِلَّا أَمَانِي. Meaning the laymen of Bani Israel, the Muslims of the time, just understood their deen as just a bunch of wishes. Like having a wish not going to make it materialize into reality. Having a dream is not going to make it happen in the real world. There has to be action, and that's why when you speak about the Islamic movements and separate them from the public, but the public is not moving. The ones who are moving are the Islamic movement. If the Islamic movements are not basically in cohesion and they're not in collaboration and they're not tolerant to one another, they're fighting each other. Definitely, we're not going to go anywhere. You understand my point?
That's 100% agreement there. Go ahead. Number 3, Sheikh. Sheikh, would we allow homosexuality or people to dress the way they want in an Islamic state?
I think this is a question is very the person knows the answer.
Okay.
There's not much reason.
No. Next question. Obviously, the answer is no. We are united in that.
And hopefully.
Kalam became a science in order to defend Islamic belief from the philosophers and critique their positions. Do we need something similar for contemporary ideologies?
Well, definitely, 100%, without a doubt. Being able to debunk the underpinnings of Western philosophy is a must. The reason the Muslimin basically became so infatuated with the Western civilization is because they didn't understand the ideological underpinnings of these Western philosophies, and they didn't know how to respond back. So they felt weak. They felt basically backwards. Add to that the material progress that happened in Europe made the Muslim have low self-esteem, really. So we became subservient to that. But when you take those ideologies, you break them down, you saw their contradiction to you debunk them first on a rational level, and then you show their contradiction to the Islamic belief. And thirdly, you show how the supremacy of the divine message of Allah over every other human ideology. That's when you're going to be able to basically make this ummah great again. So 100% we need to debunk, and we need to have a framework of debunking that.
So the idea that I guess when Kalam, Kalam has a very strange relationship in Islamic history, Sheikh. So when we say Kalam, I mean, we've had people who say Kalam is completely not allowed. The whole discussion goes back to Abu Hanifa, Al-Kalam, this, that. What is the reality of Kalam, Sheikh, and how do we actually understand this?
So kalam is two things. Usually people use the word kalam and they don't differentiate. There's two things that basically are pointed by with the word kalam. Number one is just logic and the practice of using, let's say, intellectualism, to structure the arguments of the aqidah of Islam and the usul of the fiqh, right? So we call them the mutakallimin, both on the aqidah side and the usuli side. The second piece of kalam is the philosophies. There's Muslim philosophers that basically took the Greek philosophies and delved in it and even basically you can say expanded it within the Muslim world. Aristotelian philosophy. That part of ilm al-kalam is bad, rejected, and should not be touched, really, except by professionals who their job and objective is to debunk Greek philosophy and other philosophies, right? But the regular ilm al-kalam, that basically you structure your arguments and you understand how to basically differentiate falsely connected premises from rightly connected ones and valid ones from invalid ones. This is prerequisite. It's prerequisite to learn ilm al-aqidah and prerequisite to learn ilm usul al-fiqh specifically. Does the layman have to know it? No. But as a student of knowledge and as a scholars to be, you have to. In every you can say Islamic university.
The layman. But Sheikh, let me ask you this. Today we have, I mean, anyone that goes to universities or even high schools, whatever it is, you're constantly bombarded by these ideas. I mean,
well, definitely. Look, like at the end of the day, I'm just saying, basically, is it a requirement? In general, no. But in today's world, especially Muslims like myself and yourself and our kids who are living in the West, we have to. You have to basically teach them the basic ability to debunk the isms and the liberalism and feminism and red pill and secularism and communism and all that kind of stuff. This is what we do at the I3 Institute, basically. We have a program to teach the basics of debunking all that. And also, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, we just launched an Islamic university project called Al-Izz Academy to help build, inshallah ta'ala, the scholars of the future, basically in a bachelor's in Islamic studies program that will delve deep in that, inshallah ta'ala. And we have inshallah the dream of in 2 years from today having a bachelor's in ilm al-tawheed and Islamic philosophy in Islamic aqaid and Western philosophies, inshallah.
Bismillah ta'ala. Inshallah, we can maybe put that link up where people can see that. We have 2 more questions, Sheikh. One more. Go ahead, Sheikh.
تفضل.
The hadith of Muslims will be divided to many groups and only one will be granted Jannah. What does it mean? Are Sufis or Madkhalis counted in Muslim groups or not? At later. Sectarianism at its best. No.
Yeah. Now this is a very good question. A very good question. Akhi, the hadith, the proper meaning of this hadith is that the Ummah of Islam, with all the madhahib, with all the different, basically difference in opinions, all the movements today, all of them fall into one sect, which is the Ummah of Islam. The rest of the 72 sects are like the Qadianis, the Ismailis, the Ahmadis, the pure liberals.
You're talking about Aqidah, literally Aqidah issues, where they actually come out. Okay. It has nothing to do with usuli matters and things like that. You're talking about people who actually differ in Aqidah.
Exactly. Differ in the usul of the Aqidah. So they leave the Ummah and they become a sect outside of the Ummah of Islam. Definitely. And that's why they go to hell, right? They go to hell forever, just like. And how do we make sure that this is a proper understanding? I mean, look at what is the difference between a Catholic and a Protestant and a Orthodox and so forth? Because the Hadith says basically the Jews have divided into 71 and the Christians into 72 and the Muslims into 73. The sects in the Christian and the Jewish communities do takfir on each other. You see what I'm saying? They differ with each other on major aqidah issues. And the word firqa means that basically in Islam, in the Quran, in the Sunnah. And that's why we need to understand that we're all the Muslimin, inshallah, will be from the firqa najiyah, and all the groups and all the movements and all the madhahib are one firqa, bi'idhnillah ta'ala.
Sheikh, last question, inshallah. In a lot of rallies and protests, we always see the picture of Che Guevara and the communists, the leftists, and all of this. And the Muslims are a lot, especially the youth, are very much attracted to that, meaning some type of militant, idea where people are standing up against tyrants. Doesn't matter where they are. Why is it that they are, and then why do we see where Muslims, especially the Muslim youth or those who are thinking and understanding things, not be attracted to Islam that way?
Wallahi, ya akhi, this is the biggest issue today. That also, inshallah, we just had a conference 2-3 weeks ago. I'm not sure if you had some time to check out the conference on that day. It's desecularizing the Muslim mind. That's the theme of the conference. Because Islam, for the last 100 years, unfortunately, has been propagated by most of the, you can say, the scholarly academic institutions in the Muslim world, and unfortunately today in the Western world, as a secularized reduction. As a secularized reduction, meaning basically Islam stopped being a full system of life and became just about rituals and individual duties. So we have to reverse this trend. And this is, I believe, this is going to take us 2 decades, inshallah. And inshallah, may Allah make it quicker, faster. But I believe it's going to take us a decade or 2 to be able to reverse this trend and desecularize the Muslim mind, so people see Islam as a socio-political idea, as a political philosophy, as a dream of how to set up humanity and live in a society that is just and that is divinely inspired, you can say. And that's why, when Islam is just a bunch of rituals and ibadat, most of our teenagers can say, like, listen, man, you do you, I do me. Oh, you're religious, good for you, Habibi, may Allah bless you. It's not for me. I'm Muslim enough. Iman is in the heart. Modesty is in the heart. Everything is in the heart. So it's not going to inspire anybody. It's not very inspiring, to be honest. Our teenagers and our youth, they want something to be inspired by. It's a vision for life, a dream for life. And spiritual Islam is unfortunately not having traction. And that's why we're losing our youth.
Okay, let me hold you on this. So where does the nafsiyah fall up? Is this because you mentioned that there has to be nafsiyah? I mean, where is the breaking part here? Where does it? There has to be aqliyah and nafsiyah together. Because I mean, what has been presented so far is all nafsiyah.
No. We've said that Islam is 3 things. You have to have your aqidah. You need to understand it and debunk the isms for you to basically believe. So the belief piece is basically debunking the isms and believing in Islam as a system of life. The Sharia, you need to understand it, and that means you need to basically understand that every human behavior that you do, or should be based upon, should align with the Quran and Sunnah. Number 3 is ihsan, which is basically the purification of the heart, and what you've termed as nafsiyah and so forth, is the purification of the heart and the spiritual aspect. So Islam as a system has a spiritual part to it. We're saying 1/3 of it is about spiritual purification. 1/3, we're saying. The spiritual purification, which is a personal, individual matter, we're saying is 1/3 of Islam. You see what I'm saying? The other 2/3 are the law and the ideology and the aqidah. You see what I'm saying? It's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. 3 1/3s. I didn't make this up. This is Hadith Jibreel, the most famous Hadith where Jibreel alayhi salam comes to teach the deen of Islam to the Sahaba. He says Islam is 3 things. 3/3 is spirituality, purification, it's the law, and it's the belief. That's it.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Yeah, do we have any other questions here? We do. Oh, okay. No, we're going to end it here because it's already 8:30. An hour and a half we've been going after the Sheikh. Allah, Jazakallah khair, ya Sheikh. Inshallah. Wallah, really, this was very, and this is the way we like to do it, interactive, where we can directly ask our scholars questions that we want to ask. And inshallah, we will continue to discuss with you and bring you on and continue these discussions, because at the end of the day, I think, Sheikh, these are discussions that need to take place, where the Ummah is it's coming back. It's becoming more and more aware, and these type of discussions actually help in creating that environment that we've been discussing actually for the last hour and a half. So Jazakallah khair. If you have any final thoughts, please go ahead.
Allah may Allah bless you and bless your team for making this happen, and inshallah we'll see you soon.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair, ya Sheikh. And for the rest of you brothers and sisters, inshallah, we will bring on, we have many other programs that we have planned, especially the coming month also. We will put that out there so you can, inshallah, especially there's a program coming up December 16th and 17th. We are calling it Living with a Purpose. We have scholars actually from all different backgrounds. We have scholars coming from the Deoband background, Salafiyah background, and also brothers from Hizb ut-Tahrir, from Ikhwan, many different scholars will be here on site, live. This discussion will happen both. I think they're trying to focus it more that it needs to be here where people actually have interactions with the ulama, inshallah Rabbil Alameen. So please, look for that here in this space, inshallah. And Jazakallah khair for attending. May Allah protect and preserve all of you, and may Allah give victory to the whole ummah, inshallah Rabbil Alameen. Jazakumullah khair, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
لا لن يطول الظلام، ديننا لن يضام، نحن جيل همام، نحن فينا عمر. لا 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 لن يطول الظلام، ديننا لن يضام، نحن جيل همام، نحن فينا عمر. صبح بدا نور ظهر، نجم وشمس وقمر، ألقى على الدنيا الدرر. هذا عمر، هذا عمر، كل البرايا تنتظر أيامه البيض الغرر كي تستفيد من العبر. هذا عمر، هذا عمر. لا لن تدوم الجراح، بل سيأتي الصباح، نحن أهل الكفاح، نحن فينا عمر. لا لا لن تدوم الجراح، بل سيأتي الصباح، نحن أهل الكفاح.